The Great Pyramid aligns with true north to within a tiny fraction of a degree. How ancient stonemasons achieved astronomical precision without modern tools is a mystery that reveals their forgotten genius. By the end of this, you will understand the simple yet profound methods that let them map the cosmos in stone. We will uncover how they used water as a perfect level and turned the stars into a blueprint. What does it truly mean to build something meant to last for eternity? That tiny fraction of a degree alignment begins not with stone, but with patient observation of the sky. Generations of watchers tracked the sun's slow dance along the horizon, marking where it rose and set at the solstices. A single person could drive 2 stakes into the ground and record the furthest points of the sun's seasonal travel. The midpoint between those 2 extremes gave them a perfect east-west line, a celestial truth etched into the earth. This was a global discovery, repeated by cultures from Britain to the Americas. The Babylonians, for instance, did not merely watch the stars, they meticulously recorded their movements on clay tablets, creating the earliest known star catalogues. This was not abstract science, it was a practical necessity. Knowing the sun's precise path meant knowing when to plant crops, when the floods would come, and how to orient a sacred space. This deep, cyclical knowledge of the heavens provided the first and most reliable blueprint. With a true east-west line established, finding north and south became a matter of simple geometry. They were using the cosmos itself as their ultimate measuring tool, a fixed grid against which they could align their greatest works. This profound understanding of celestial mechanics set the stage for the next great challenge, translating that perfect sky-born alignment down to the ground with equally perfect tools. But that celestial blueprint was useless without a way to transfer it to the ground with absolute fidelity. The real magic lies in the tools they used, devices of such elegant simplicity they feel almost like cheating. Picture a worker on the Giza plateau holding nothing more than a piece of string with a weight tied to the end. This is a plumb bob, and against the sheer face of a rising pyramid, it was their unwavering guide to vertical truth. Gravity never lies, and that suspended weight, pointing directly to the Earth's center, gave them a perfect reference line every single time. For establishing a perfectly flat surface across acres of stone, they used an even more humble tool, a shallow trench filled with water. Water always finds its own level, and by marking the height of the water at different points along the trench, they could ensure that every single foundation stone was laid on the same impossibly flat plane. The Romans later refined this concept into a tool called the groma. It looked like a cross on a pole with weights hanging from each of its 4 arms. By sighting along the strings of these suspended weights, an architect could lay out perfect right angles for the streets of a new city or the corners of a massive temple. These were not just tools, they were physical applications of unchanging natural laws. The stonemasons did not need to understand the complex mathematics of gravity or fluid dynamics. They simply needed to observe and trust the consistency of the physical world. Their genius was in harnessing these principles, turning observation into action through a process of meticulous repetition and careful calibration. A single measurement was not enough. They would check and recheck, using sighting rods to align distant points, their eyes becoming as precise as any modern laser. This demonstrates a profound truth that technological sophistication is not a prerequisite for precision. What matters is a deep understanding of fundamental principles and the patient, unwavering discipline to apply them correctly. With these simple, infallible tools in hand, the stage was set for the most daunting task of all: taking these small-scale perfect lines and angles and scaling them up to a project of monumental, almost unimaginable size. Every block had a journey that began deep within the earth. The stonemason's first act of precision was selection, choosing the right stone from the quarry face with an almost intuitive understanding of the rock's grain and structure. To free a massive block of granite, they did not simply smash it apart. They would drill a line of holes along a natural fracture and hammer in dry wooden wedges. Then they would soak these wedges with water. As the wood expanded with tremendous, silent force, it would cleanly split the stone along a perfect plane. For softer limestone, they used balls of dolerite, a stone harder than the material they were quarrying, to pound and grind the blocks into shape. This was not brute force, it was a conversation with the stone itself, a patient process of persuasion that preserved the integrity of the block from the very start. Moving these multi-ton stones was the next great puzzle. How do you transport a weight greater than 2 full-grown elephants across miles of desert? The answer was a triumph of simple physics. They might roll the block on a bed of logs, a primitive but effective set of rollers. For the heaviest granite, they built enormous wooden sledges and pulled them along specially prepared pathways. Archaeologists have found evidence that these tracks were often lubricated with water or a slurry of wet clay, drastically reducing friction and turning an impossible drag into a manageable pull. When the Nile flooded, they achieved their greatest logistical feat, loading stones onto massive barges and floating them right to the construction site, using the river's own power to do the heaviest work. Every step of this process, from the careful split in the quarry to the fluid glide of the sledge, was designed to protect the stone's perfect geometry. A single crack or chip here would ruin the precise fit required later. This logistical mastery was the unspoken foundation of their astronomical ambition. You cannot align a pyramid to the stars with broken or misshapen blocks. The perfect angles and flawless surfaces they would soon create depended entirely on this first, monumental effort to bring perfection from the earth. With these pristine blocks finally at the site, the true test of their planning could begin, integrating celestial patterns into the very layout of the ground. Geometry was not an abstract science for these builders, but a living language written into the world around them. A stonemason might have observed the perfect hexagonal cells of a honeycomb, a structure of immense strength and efficiency that uses the least amount of wax to hold the most honey. He would have seen the same repeating patterns in the scales of a pine cone or the spiral of a snail's shell, recognizing a universal principle of order and balance. These natural forms were their textbooks, demonstrating that certain shapes and proportions were inherently stable and pleasing to the eye. This was not about complex calculations, but about recognizing a deep, pre-existing harmony in nature and then learning to replicate it in stone. The most fundamental of these principles was the creation of a perfect right angle, the absolute cornerstone of their monumental architecture. Long before the Greek mathematician Pythagoras gave it his name, the relationship between the sides of a right-angled triangle was a practical tool. They used a simple loop of rope with 12 equally spaced knots. By stretching this rope into a triangle with sides of 3, 4, and 5 units, they could instantly generate a perfectly square corner every single time. This rope stretching technique was their on-site calculator, a physical guarantee that the walls of a temple would meet at a true 90 degrees. Beyond simple triangles, they seemed to grasp more complex proportional relationships. The golden ratio, a special number approximately equal to 1.618, appears repeatedly in nature, from the arrangement of leaves on a stem to the spiral of a galaxy. Builders from Egypt to Greece intuitively incorporated this same proportion into their greatest works. The facade of the Parthenon fits neatly into a golden rectangle, and the dimensions of the Great Pyramid's base and height are believed to reflect this ratio. Using this natural mathematics created a sense of visual harmony that is felt more than it is measured, a quiet resonance between a building and the natural world. This geometric framework was the essential bridge. It allowed them to take the celestial alignments they observed in the sky and the perfect lines they established on the ground with their water levels and plumb bobs, and scale them up into a coherent, harmonious whole. The stars gave them direction, and geometry gave them the rules to build within it. But how do you take these perfect small-scale principles and apply them to a structure that covers 13 acres and aims for the heavens? The leap in scale is almost incomprehensible. This deep understanding of geometry allowed them to scale celestial patterns into monuments that still dominate the landscape. Across continents, from the wind-swept Salisbury Plain to the green valleys of Ireland, ancient builders encoded their astronomical knowledge directly into stone. Stonehenge, with its massive heel stone, perfectly frames the rising sun on the summer solstice. In Ireland, the tomb at Newgrange features a special roof box, a narrow aperture designed so that a beam of sunlight pierces the inner darkness for just 17 minutes at dawn on the winter solstice. These were not just ritual sites, they were functioning observatories, colossal instruments for tracking the sun and moon. Standing stones acted as permanent sighting devices, their alignments marking calendar points with an accuracy that could be within a single minute of arc, a precision that would demand generations of patient, meticulous observation. This was not abstract stargazing, it was practical engineering. The same knowledge that told them when to plant crops also told them how to orient a temple. The builders used these solar and lunar alignments as their primary directional markers, setting the true north of a project not with a magnetic compass, but by waiting for a specific star to rise over a specific stone. This celestial data was then directly incorporated into their construction techniques. The layout of a tomb's passage, the angle of a pyramid's ascending corridor, the very placement of a single lintel, all were decisions informed by this cosmic order. They were building mirrors of the heavens, ensuring their sacred spaces resonated with the same timeless rhythm as the stars themselves. This reveals a profound continuity of thought, a unified vision where architecture and astronomy were inseparable. The stonemason's hammer did not just shape rock, it chiseled a reflection of the cosmos. That same water used to move stones became their most powerful tool for establishing perfect flatness. Across a sprawling construction site, workers would dig a complex network of narrow trenches, connecting them to form a single, winding channel. Once filled with water, this entire system would settle into one unbroken horizontal plane, a liquid mirror laid across the earth. No matter how uneven the ground beneath, the surface of the water in every trench remained at the exact same height, governed by the relentless pull of gravity. This was a living level, a dynamic reference that could span acres. With this system in place, establishing a foundation's height was simple. A builder would wade into the water, placing a marked rod at the desired depth below the water's surface. He would then transfer this measurement to the stone itself, carving a line that corresponded to the universal water level. Every single block, no matter where it was placed, could now be set to the same precise elevation. The Romans mastered this technique on an epic scale, using it to maintain the gentle, consistent slope of their aqueducts for dozens of miles. A miscalculation of even a few inches over that distance would mean the water would stop flowing, but their hydraulic levels ensured a perfect, gravity-fed descent from the mountains to the city. In Egypt, some researchers suggest the annual Nile flood was not just a source of water and fertile soil, but a ready-made leveling device. By constructing temporary dikes and then allowing the floodwaters to inundate the pyramid base, they could use the river's own vast, flat surface to verify the foundation's perfection across its entire 13-acre expanse. The genius of this method lies in its simplicity and its infallibility. Water does not lie, it does not warp, and it requires no calibration. This natural element, so common and vital, was transformed into a precision instrument capable of achieving a flatness that rivals modern laser surveying. Without this perfect foundation, the celestial alignments built upon it would have been impossible. A pyramid tilted by even a single degree would fail to point so precisely to the pole star. The water in those trenches was the silent, essential partner to the stars in the sky, one providing the level plane upon which the other's perfect angles could be built. A perfect foundation would be useless without stones cut to an equally perfect fit. The final, most intimate stage of the work was the art of dressing and fitting, a painstaking process that transformed rough-hewn blocks into geometric masterpieces. To cut granite, a stone of immense hardness, they used bronze saws. Bronze alone is too soft to scratch granite, so the true cutting edge came from a constant stream of abrasive sand poured between the saw and the stone. Each pass of the saw dragged these hard quartz particles across the granite, grinding it down with agonizing slowness. It was friction, not sharpness, that did the work, a testament to their profound patience. For the final finish, they polished the surfaces with a series of ever finer stones, from coarse sandstone to smooth emery, until the granite shone like a dark mirror and was perfectly flat. This relentless pursuit of a perfect fit reached its zenith in the polygonal masonry of the Incas. Their walls are a puzzle of irregular, multifaceted blocks that interlock with such precision you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. There was no mortar, no adhesive. The entire structure's stability came from the complex geometry of the joints themselves. Each stone was a unique problem. Craftsmen would shape a block roughly, then try its fit against the existing wall. They used clay to take an impression of the hollow or carved a wooden template to guide them. Then they would return to the stone, chipping away minute slivers, testing the fit again and again in a cycle of trial and error that could last for days for a single block. This was not just about creating a strong wall, it was about preserving a celestial intention. A single poorly fitted stone, a joint that settled or shifted over time, could throw off the precise orientation of an entire corridor. The painstaking care they took ensured that the astronomical alignments designed into the structure, the sight lines to specific stars and the angles of the sun's rays, remained true for centuries. The wall itself became the instrument, and its flawless construction was the only way to guarantee its readings would never fail. How could such a slow, deliberate process possibly keep pace with the demands of a massive project that spanned generations? This global alignment points to a deeper truth, that ancient stonemasons were part of a connected technological world. The same principles for finding true north using the sun's path appear in monuments separated by vast oceans and centuries. This was not a series of isolated discoveries, but evidence of a sophisticated network of knowledge sharing. Trade routes did more than move spices and silks. They carried the most valuable commodity of all, practical wisdom. A master mason from Mesopotamia might travel with a merchant caravan, his mind holding the precise method for laying out a perfect square. He would share this technique with local builders in exchange for supplies or safe passage, and in doing so, that specific knowledge would take root in a new land. The movement of people and ideas along these routes allowed for a slow, steady accumulation of refinements. A technique perfected in Egypt for quarrying granite could be adapted in India for cutting sandstone, with each generation adding its own small improvement before passing it on. This cultural transmission relied on robust systems to preserve complex information. Long before written manuals, the primary method was the master-apprentice relationship. A young learner would spend years working beside a master, not just carrying stones, but absorbing every nuanced action, every trick for sighting a star or judging the quality of a stone's grain. This knowledge was also encoded in the very stories and myths a culture told itself. A legend about a hero following a specific star might secretly contain the instructions for aligning a temple to that same celestial body. The constellation patterns painted on a tomb wall were not just decoration, they were a durable reference guide. This shared, evolving pool of understanding explains how civilizations with no direct contact could achieve such similar precision. They were all drawing from the same deep well of celestial observation and practical geometry, a collective human project to map the heavens onto the earth. The architectural marvels we see today are not isolated triumphs, but the cumulative result of this ancient, interconnected conversation in stone. The Great Pyramid of Giza presents a paradox of scale and exactitude that defies easy explanation. Here was a structure composed of 2.3 million stone blocks, each one meticulously placed, yet its alignment to the cardinal directions is off by a mere 3/60ths of a single degree. To achieve this, the builders could not rely on a single observation. Instead, they likely employed teams of watchers stationed at the four corners of the rising foundation, each one tracking the circular path of a different circumpolar star. These stars, which never dip below the horizon, swing around the north celestial pole. By marking the highest and lowest points of a specific star's arc across the night sky, an observer could bisect that arc to find a fixed, unwavering line pointing to true north. Having multiple teams perform this ritual simultaneously across the vast building site allowed them to cross-check their results, creating a network of reference lines that cancelled out individual errors. This was a system of celestial triangulation performed on a colossal scale, a collective act of observation that translated the turning of the heavens into a blueprint etched into the desert floor. But the pyramid's celestial connections do not end with its external form. Deep within its core, narrow shafts, once sealed from the outside world, point with uncanny accuracy toward specific stars. One shaft targets Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, associated with the goddess Isis. Another aligns with the stars of Orion's belt, linked to the god Osiris. These were not random holes, they were precisely engineered conduits, spiritual pathways for the soul of the pharaoh to ascend and join the eternal, undying stars. This implies an understanding that goes beyond simple star positions. The slow, cyclical wobble of the Earth's axis, a phenomenon known as precession, gradually shifts our view of the stars over a 26,000-year cycle. The fact that these shafts aligned perfectly with their target stars at the time of the pyramid's construction suggests the builders were aware of this grand celestial clock and deliberately built its timing into the very stone. Yet all of this celestial ambition would have been impossible without a foundation of absolute geometric perfection. The base of the Great Pyramid is almost a perfect square, with the difference between its longest and shortest sides being less than 1/10 of 1%. How do you achieve such consistency over a distance of more than 750 feet? The answer lies in a relentless process of checking and rechecking. After establishing their initial square using the 3-4-5 rope method, they would have constantly measured the diagonals. In a perfect square, the diagonals are always equal. As the walls rose, teams of surveyors would have stretched their cords across these immense distances, ensuring that with every new course of stone, the diagonals remained perfectly matched. This continuous feedback loop, a simple principle applied with unwavering discipline, is what locked the pyramid's immense volume into a form of near-flawless symmetry. The Great Pyramid, therefore, is not one miracle of engineering but the fusion of many. It is a celestial observatory, a geometric theorem, and a spiritual vessel, all achieved through the coordinated labor of thousands and a profound, patient dialogue with the cosmos. Stonehenge stands as a testament to a different kind of genius, one that traded polished granite for rough-hewn bluestone and pyramids for a ring of giants. Its builders achieved astronomical precision not through a single, flawless monument, but through a sprawling arrangement of stones that functioned together as a machine. The journey of these stones is a story in itself. Some of the smaller bluestones were transported from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a distance of over 150 miles. How they moved these multi-ton pillars across rivers and mountains remains one of archaeology's great puzzles, suggesting a motivation that transcended mere construction. They were not just building a temple, they were assembling the components of a celestial calendar. At the heart of this stone computer lies the famous summer solstice alignment. If you stand at the center of the circle and look towards the outlying heel stone, the rising sun on the longest day of the year appears to crown its tip with light. This was no accident. It was a carefully engineered sightline, a moment of cosmic theater designed to mark a turning point in the year, but the sun was only part of the story. Other stones and lintels are positioned to capture the moon at its most extreme rising and setting points, events that occur on an 18.6-year cycle. Tracking such a long, slow rhythm required observations passed down through generations, a patient accumulation of data etched into the landscape. The geometry underpinning this arrangement is equally sophisticated. The layout of the sarsen stones forms a series of perfect Pythagorean triangles, those same 3, 4, 5 right-angle relationships used in Egypt, but applied here on a monumental scale. The spaces between the circles, the angles between the stones, all reflect a deep understanding of proportion and measurement. What looks from a distance like a random collection of rocks is, in fact, a complex web of astronomical alignments and geometric principles. This was a working model of the heavens, a device that could predict eclipses, mark the seasons, and track the complex dance between the sun and the moon. It demonstrates that precision was not always about creating a single, perfect angle, but about orchestrating many elements to capture the moving targets of the sky. The stonemasons of Stonehenge were not just builders, they were the programmers of a lithic computer, using the timeless stability of stone to map the eternal cycles of time itself. High in the Andes, the stones of Machu Picchu do not fight the mountain, they converse with it. The Inca stonemasons achieved their celestial precision by making the landscape itself an active partner in their architecture. They did not flatten the peak to impose a rigid grid, but instead carved their structures to align with the breathtaking natural skyline. Specific temples and windows were positioned to perfectly frame distant mountain peaks, which served as giant, permanent markers for the sun's journey. On the solstices, the sun would rise or set directly behind these pre-selected pinnacles, turning the entire horizon into a vast, unshakable calendar. This was not construction against nature, but a profound collaboration with it, using the immutable features of the earth to track the motions of the heavens. At the heart of this celestial city stands the Intihuatana, the so-called hitching post of the sun. This is not a simple carved rock, but a complex, multi-angled instrument. Its precise facets and protrusions cast distinct, sharp shadows across its base. Throughout the year, the path of these shadows sweeps across the stone, and on the exact days of the equinoxes, the shadow completely disappears for a moment, a direct physical manifestation of the sun standing directly overhead. During the solstices, the shadows fall in their longest and shortest arcs, marking the turning points of the year with stone-cast certainty. It was a sundial, a calendar, and an altar all in one, a device that made the invisible progress of time visible and tangible. This integration extended to the very doorways and windows of the city. Certain carefully shaped openings were engineered to act as precise viewfinders for the night sky. At a specific time of year, the rising of the Pleiades star cluster, a tight group of stars known to the Incas, would appear centered in one of these stone frames. This celestial event was not just a beautiful sight, it was a critical signal for the agricultural cycle, telling the people it was time to plant their crops. The entire city's layout reflects this deep, holistic understanding. While its main structures respect the cardinal directions, they are also oriented to harmonize with the dramatic contours of the surrounding peaks and the flow of the Urubamba River below. The stonemasons here used the environment as their primary reference system. Why build a fragile wooden sighting device when you have a mountain that will last for millennia? Their genius was in recognizing that the most reliable tools for cosmic alignment were already in place, sculpted by nature over eons. They simply learned to read the landscape as if it were a star chart, building their mirror to the heavens not in opposition to the earth, but as its most eloquent echo. These mathematical principles were the silent language behind the stone. While ropes and pegs established the basic shapes on the ground, the true genius emerged in the invisible numbers governing the proportions. An architect might begin by marking a perfect circle and then inscribe a square within it. The relationship between the circle's circumference and the square's perimeter yields a close approximation of pi, the fundamental constant that defines a circle. This was not abstract calculation, but a physical discovery made with simple tools, revealing a cosmic constant through geometric construction. Similarly, by dividing a line in a specific way, they could derive the golden ratio. If you have a line and divide it so the longer part is about 1.618 times the length of the shorter part, and this same ratio holds true for the whole line compared to the longer part, you have found this special proportion. This number appears in the spirals of shells and the branching of trees, and the builders instinctively wove it into their work. In Egypt, this intuitive mathematics was codified into a practical system called the Sikh. The Sikh defined a pyramid slope not with degrees, but as a ratio of horizontal run to vertical rise. A specific seat, like a palm of horizontal distance for each cubit of height, would be decreed for a project. This single number allowed teams working on different faces of a massive pyramid, who might never even see each other, to build with the exact same angle, ensuring the structure's perfect converging geometry. This was the key to scaling intention into reality. The same proportional rules that governed the layout of a small shrine could be applied directly to a structure 100 times larger because the mathematics remained constant. The harmony felt in these ancient spaces is no accident. It is the direct result of these embedded ratios, creating a visual and emotional resonance that echoes the natural world. A building based on the golden ratio simply feels right to the human eye, balanced and alive. This repetition of specific ratios across disconnected cultures, from the Parthenon in Greece to the pyramids of Mesoamerica, points to a profound idea. They were not copying each other, but independently discovering the same universal language of form and structure, a language written into the very fabric of the cosmos and reflected in the growth of living things. Their structures were not merely aligned to the stars in position, but in their very essence, built from the same mathematical principles that govern the universe. The stones themselves were a living calendar, their silent alignments dictating the rhythm of daily life. For the farmer in his field, the priest in the temple, and the mason shaping the rock, the turning of the heavens was not an abstract wonder but a practical guide to survival. A doorway perfectly aligned to catch the equinox sunrise was more than an architectural marvel. It was a signal. The moment that first sliver of light touched a specific mark on the floor, the entire community knew it was time to plant the maize or harvest the wheat. This was precision with a purpose, connecting the vastness of the cosmos directly to the food on the table. In the Yucatan Peninsula, the Mayans built the Caracol Observatory at Chichen Itza with narrow, spiraling windows precisely aimed at the movements of Venus. They tracked the planet's complex cycles, knowing its appearance in the dawn or evening sky heralded specific times for both ceremonial rites and the essential work of clearing land or sowing crops. Across the ocean, the great stone circles of Europe functioned in a similar way. As the seasons shifted, the patterns of light and shadow would dance across the circle, with the solstice sun rising or setting to crown a particular stone, marking the longest day, the shortest night, and every critical point in between. The stonemasons who erected these monuments were not just builders, they were the creators of permanent almanacs carved from the very landscape. Their work ensured that the crucial knowledge of when to act, a knowledge that could mean the difference between plenty and famine, was never lost. It was locked into the immutable positions of sun and stone, a legacy of precision that served the spirit and the soil in equal measure. This unity of purpose raises a compelling question. How did these master builders translate their grand celestial visions into the tangible reality of a single, perfectly placed stone? The answer lies in a forgotten tool of astonishing simplicity. Coordinating a project across generations required more than just a blueprint. It demanded a system of living alignment. One of the most profound challenges was ensuring that a temple begun by a father would align perfectly with the sections completed by his grandchildren. The entire project had to remain locked to its original celestial target for decades, a task that seems almost impossible. How could they prevent tiny, human errors from accumulating over time into a fatal misalignment? The solution was likely a master reference line, a single, inviolable axis etched into the foundation and aligned with unwavering precision to a specific circumpolar star. This was the project's true north in every sense, the one line against which all other measurements were periodically checked. Throughout the long years of construction, teams of surveyors would return to this master line, especially during key celestial events like the solstices or the zenith passage of a star. They would use sighting instruments to verify that their rising walls still paralleled this original cosmic marker. This regular recalibration acted as a built-in error correction system, catching any minute drift before it could become a permanent flaw in the structure. This system was reinforced by the use of a standardized measurement unit, the royal cubit in Egypt. This was not a rough approximation, but a precisely defined length, often represented by a master rod kept in a temple and replicated for distribution to the various work gangs. Every team quarrying stone in the south or dressing blocks in the north used a cubit stick that was an exact copy. This universal language of measurement meant that a block carved by one group would fit perfectly into a space prepared by another, even if those teams never met and were separated by many years. This long-term precision management reveals a level of project planning that is breathtaking in its foresight. The master builders had to design not just a building, but a process that could survive generational transitions, preserving the astronomical intention with the same fidelity as the stone itself. The monument we see today is not just a collection of perfectly placed blocks, but the physical evidence of a promise kept across centuries. That master reference line was more than a mark on stone. It was a sacred trust passed from one generation of guardians to the next. In ancient societies, the role of the architect was often inseparable from that of the priest and the astronomer. A single figure, draped in both spiritual and technical authority, stood at the center of this grand endeavor. In the Mayan world, a priest astronomer would spend nights on a high platform, tracking the slow, looping dance of Venus across the sky. He knew its cycles lasted 584 days, and that its appearance as the morning or evening star signaled specific times for both ceremony and war. This was not a detached academic exercise. The next day, that same individual would descend to the construction site, using his celestial calculations to direct the precise orientation of a new temple's doorway, ensuring it captured the planet's light at a pivotal moment. His knowledge was a single, unified whole, where the movement of a god in the sky directly dictated the angle of a wall on the earth. This fusion of roles was a global phenomenon. In Mesopotamia, temple schools were the intellectual powerhouses of their day. Here, young scribes trained for years, mastering complex mathematics and meticulously recording the paths of planets on clay tablets. Their education was intensely practical, designed to produce administrators who could calculate the volume of a ziggurate's foundation, draft its plans, and maintain the agricultural and religious calendar that governed all of society. These were not separate disciplines. The same mathematical formula used to predict the lunar eclipse was used to ensure the temple's walls were straight and true. This created a powerful class of overseers, individuals who could look at a stack of astronomical data and see, in their mind's eye, the physical structure it demanded. Their authority allowed them to command vast labor forces with a clear, unwavering vision. When a master builder pointed to a spot on the ground and declared a cornerstone must be laid here, it was not a guess. It was the culmination of a lifetime of observation, a point determined by the immutable logic of the cosmos. This spiritual technical knowledge became a self-perpetuating system. A master would take on apprentices, teaching them not only the rituals and chants, but also the precise method for stretching a cord to form a right angle, or how to calibrate a water level. The knowledge was preserved through this direct personal transmission, ensuring that the techniques for aligning a monument to the solstice sun remained intact and uncorrupted for centuries. The stones themselves were inert, but the intention behind them was kept alive by this unbroken chain of human guardians, each one a living link between the stars and the rising temple. Theoretical explanations meet their ultimate test in the dusty fields of experimental archaeology. Modern teams have accepted the challenge, setting out to recreate ancient methods using only the tools and materials available thousands of years ago. One ambitious project saw researchers attempt to build a small-scale pyramid. They quarried limestone with stone balls and copper chisels, experiencing firsthand the agonizingly slow but effective process of grinding and pounding the rock into shape. They moved massive blocks on wooden sledges, discovering that a crew of about 20 people could pull a 2-ton stone with surprising ease, but only if the path was first lubricated with a slick slurry of wet clay. What looked impossible on paper became a matter of logistics, teamwork, and raw human endurance. These are not just academic exercises, they are physical dialogues with the past, where every splintered rope and broken sledge teaches a new lesson about the limits of ancient technology. Another group focused on celestial alignment, using nothing but a clear night sky and simple sighting rods. They attempted to find true north by tracking the circumpolar stars, just as the Egyptians might have. The process was painstaking, requiring multiple observers to mark the highest and lowest points of a star's arc over many nights. Yet when they bisected that arc, the resulting line was astonishingly accurate, easily within the tiny margin of error seen at Giza. This simple experiment proved that patient observation, repeated over time, could achieve a level of precision that rivals modern instruments. The real challenge, they found, was not the observation itself, but transferring that perfect celestial line to the ground across a vast construction site without it warping, a problem that highlighted the genius of their cross-checking survey teams. Perhaps the most revealing experiments involved the fitting of stones. Researchers trying to replicate the polygonal walls of the Incas quickly learned that brute force was useless. Shaping a single, irregular block to fit its neighbor was a puzzle that could take days. They used clay to take impressions of the hollows in the wall, then painstakingly chipped away at their new block, testing the fit again and again. The success of this method depended entirely on the skill and intuition of the craftsperson, a level of artistry that no machine can easily duplicate. These hands-on trials validate the hypothesized techniques, but they also reveal unexpected truths. They show that what we might call primitive was, in fact, a highly refined and sophisticated system of problem-solving. The ancient Masons were not just workers, they were engineers and artists whose greatest tool was a deep, accumulated wisdom passed down through generations. This living research continues to peel back the layers of mystery, proving that the true blueprint for these wonders was not drawn on papyrus, but etched into the collective memory of the builders themselves. Their understanding of stone was as deep as their knowledge of the stars. An ancient mason did not see a mountain as a mere source of material, but as a library of different stones, each with its own character and purpose. He could read the rock face like a map, identifying subtle color shifts and grain patterns that revealed hidden fracture lines. This was not random hacking, it was a precise form of geological surgery. By locating these natural planes of weakness, quarry workers could position their drill holes perfectly. When they hammered in their wooden wedges and soaked them with water, the stone would split cleanly along these pre-existing lines, yielding a perfectly shaped block with astonishing efficiency and minimal waste. This intuitive grasp of material science was their first and most crucial step toward precision. They knew that a block flawed at birth could never become part of a perfect alignment. The Egyptians demonstrated this principle with masterful strategy. For the immense, unyielding foundation stones of a pyramid, they chose granite, a rock of incredible density and strength, quarried from distant Aswan. This stone could bear colossal weight for millennia without crushing. Yet for the smooth outer casing that required intricate fitting and polishing, they selected a finer limestone. This softer stone was easier to shape with copper chisels and abrasive sand, allowing artisans to achieve those seamless joints and mirror-like surfaces. This was not a random choice, it was a deliberate selection based on a profound understanding of how different materials would perform over centuries. They were engineering for eternity, matching the property of the stone to the function of the element. A granite block hidden in the foundation did not need a perfect polish, but it demanded immense compressive strength. A limestone casing stone needed to be workable for a flawless fit and to withstand the relentless desert winds without fracturing. This geological wisdom ensured that the celestial alignments they worked so hard to achieve were not undone by the slow, grinding forces of time. The perfect angles and sight lines, once set, would be maintained by stones chosen specifically to hold that precise form. The longevity of these monuments is not just a testament to their astronomical genius, but to this deep, practical partnership with the very earth they built upon. How did this hard-won material knowledge then translate into the final, breathtaking act of assembly? This celestial blueprint was not confined to temples and tombs, but expanded to shape entire cities. The ancient impulse to mirror the heavens in stone found its ultimate expression in urban planning, where every street and building could become part of a grand cosmic design. In the vast metropolis of Teotihuacan, the colossal Street of the Dead does not run true north and south. Instead, it is oriented precisely 15.5 degrees east of north. This was not a surveying error, but a deliberate alignment to capture the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster, a group of stars deeply significant to the city's inhabitants. The entire urban grid, from the Pyramid of the Sun to the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, was locked to this celestial marker, transforming the city itself into a terrestrial map of a specific constellation. Across the world, Roman engineers applied a different but equally systematic approach. When founding a new city, a priest would use a groma to lay out the two primary streets, the Cardo and the Decumanus. These were not arbitrarily placed. The Decumanus was typically aligned to the rising sun on the day the city was founded, or to another significant solar event, embedding that moment in time into the very layout of the community. The rest of the city's grid was then built from this sacred, astronomically derived cross. This urban-scale precision demanded an unprecedented level of coordination. It meant that the architect of a new bathhouse, built a century after the city's founding, had to adhere to an alignment established by his ancestors. His work was not an independent project, but a single tile in a vast mosaic that had to fit a predetermined cosmic pattern. This consistency reveals a profound truth. Astronomical alignment was not a special effect reserved for sacred spaces. It was a fundamental principle of spatial organization, as essential as drainage or defense. The daily life of a merchant walking to the forum, a child playing in a courtyard, or a family sharing a meal, all unfolded within an environment meticulously structured to reflect the order of the cosmos. The city was not just a place to live, it was a constant physical reminder of humanity's place in a harmonious universe, a living instrument tuned to the music of the spheres. That same universal language of geometry echoes across oceans and centuries. From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Mesoamerica and the islands of Southeast Asia, we find pyramid structures rising toward the sky, each one meticulously aligned to the cosmos. The Great Pyramid at Giza faces true north. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan is oriented to the setting sun on a specific day, and the temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia are arranged to mirror the constellation of Draco. These cultures were separated by vast, seemingly impassable distances, with no evidence of direct contact. So how do we explain the nearly identical precision in their work? There are two compelling possibilities. The first is that this knowledge was carried, that a core set of astronomical and geometric principles traveled along forgotten trade routes or with migrating peoples, slowly spreading and adapting to new environments over thousands of years. The second, perhaps more profound idea is that they all arrived at the same conclusions independently. This is known as convergent technological evolution. Just as birds, bats, and insects all separately evolved wings for flight, different cultures facing the same fundamental challenges: how to track time, how to honor the gods, how to build something permanent, may have all looked to the same sky and found the same answers. They all observed that the sun and stars move in predictable cycles. They all discovered that a rope with 12 knots could form a perfect right angle. They all recognized that a pyramid is an inherently stable shape, resistant to earthquakes and the ravages of time. The use of the same mathematical ratios, like the golden ratio or pi, in structures worlds apart suggests that these are not just human inventions, but fundamental truths embedded in nature, waiting to be discovered by any culture that looks closely enough at the world. Whether through shared ancestry or separate paths of genius, These intercontinental parallels reveal a deep, universal human impulse. We are a species driven to map the heavens, to find our place in the cosmos, and to build our understanding into the very stones beneath our feet. This pattern suggests that the relationship between humanity, geometry, and the stars is not a cultural artifact, but a fundamental part of our collective consciousness. That persistent human drive for precision did not vanish with the ancient world, it simply evolved. The fundamental principles those stonemasons discovered now form the bedrock of our modern built environment. Consider the water level they used to flatten a pyramid's foundation. Today, a construction crew uses a laser level, projecting a perfectly straight, invisible beam across a room. The technology is light years apart, but the underlying principle is identical. Both tools rely on the unwavering consistency of a natural force to establish a true horizontal plane. The ancient plumb bob, a weighted string defining vertical truth, has its direct descendant in the digital theodolite, an instrument that measures angles with microscopic accuracy. The goal remains the same: to transfer a perfect reference line from a small tool to a massive structure. This continuity stretches to the grandest scale of all. Ancient navigators and builders looked to the pole star to find true north. Today, a surveyor uses a GPS receiver that triangulates its position from a constellation of satellites. Instead of tracking a single star's arc across the night sky, the device locks onto multiple man-made stars in orbit. The method is exponentially more complex, but the foundational concept of celestial triangulation to determine exact location and orientation is a direct inheritance from those first astronomers who mapped the heavens onto the Earth. Modern engineers often turn to these ancient sites not just out of historical curiosity, but as a masterclass in problem solving. Studying how the Incas built earthquake-resistant walls without mortar can inspire new seismic designs. Analyzing the ventilation shafts within the Great Pyramid can inform passive cooling systems for modern buildings. The ancient builders were masters of working with their environment, using physics and material science in ways we are only now fully appreciating. Their legacy is not locked in stone. It is alive in every skyscraper that points straight to the sky, in every bridge that spans a chasm, and in every roadmap that guides us home. The tools have changed, but the quest for perfect alignment, born under the watchful eyes of ancient stonemasons, continues to shape our world. The idea that ancient precision must come from lost super science or otherworldly architects is a seductive one. It suggests a shortcut, a secret that absolves us from grappling with the sheer scale of human effort. Yet the truth uncovered by archaeology is far more compelling. It reveals a story not of magic but of meticulous, generation-spanning work. We see this in the quarries of Egypt, where the techniques for cutting granite evolved slowly over hundreds of years. Early methods were crude and wasteful, but each generation refined the process, learning through trial and error how to use copper saws with abrasive sand more effectively, how to position wedges for a cleaner split. This is not the record of a sudden gift from the gods, but the gradual, hard-won accumulation of practical knowledge. The real mystery is not what they had, but how they used it. A simple copper chisel seems hopelessly soft against granite, but in the hands of a master craftsperson who understood the stone's crystalline structure, who knew exactly how much pressure to apply and where to strike, it became a precision instrument. This was not about the tool itself, but about the deep, tactile intelligence of the person wielding it. We often underestimate what is possible with simple technology because our modern world values speed above all else. We have forgotten the power of patience. An ancient mason might spend a week perfectly shaping a single corner of a single block, a pace that feels inconceivably slow to us. But when that patience is multiplied across 1,000 workers over 50 years, the result is a pyramid. Dismissing these achievements as impossible without alien intervention does a profound disservice to our ancestors. It robs them of their genius. The reality is so much more impressive. Every perfectly fitted stone is a testament to human perseverance, to the power of watching, learning, and slowly, painstakingly, imposing order on a chaotic world. Their greatest tool was not made of metal or stone, but was the collective, determined mind of a culture united by a vision that outlasted every individual who worked to build it. That dramatic shaft of light striking the inner sanctum was far more than a spectacle. It was a physical argument, a demonstration that the universe operated on a knowable, predictable order, and that human society was a deliberate part of that design. These engineered moments of celestial theater generated a profound psychological awe, a feeling of being connected to something vast and eternal. For a participant standing in a dark chamber as the equinox sun suddenly flooded the space with gold, the experience was not just visual, it was visceral. It transformed abstract belief into an undeniable, shared reality. The perfect alignment proved that the priests and builders truly understood the laws of the cosmos, and in that moment, the entire social and spiritual hierarchy felt validated and correct. This emotional resonance was the glue that held these monumental projects together across centuries. Why would a farmer willingly contribute his labor to a pyramid he would never see completed? Because he had likely witnessed a smaller version of this celestial magic himself, perhaps in a local temple where the solstice sun aligned with a statue of a god. He understood that his work, however small, was contributing to a grand, cosmic conversation. This created a powerful feedback loop. The precision of the alignment generated awe, which reinforced cultural and spiritual authority, which in turn justified the continued investment of resources to maintain that precision. The stability of the society became intertwined with the stability of its astronomically aligned structures. When every generation renewed the same alignments, rebuilding a temple on the exact same foundation as its predecessor, they were not just preserving a building. They were reaffirming a worldview, asserting that their way of life was as unchanging and true as the path of the stars. This psychological need for cosmic harmony, for a tangible connection to the eternal, is what motivated the immense multi-generational effort. The stones were not just aligned to the stars for accuracy, but to the human heart, creating an emotional anchor that has held fast for thousands of years. These celestial blueprints were drafted on a shifting, living planet. Ancient stonemasons designed for eternity, but they knew the Earth itself was not a fixed stage. The ground could settle, continents drift imperceptibly, and even the stars above them were slowly marching to a different rhythm. The most significant of these changes is the precession of the equinoxes, a grand 26,000-year wobble in the Earth's axis. This means the pole star is not a permanent fixture. The star Thuban, not Polaris, was the North Star when the Great Pyramid was built. A shaft aligned perfectly with Thuban then would point to empty space today. This presented a profound challenge for builders who wanted their alignments to remain potent for millennia. Some structures seem to have been designed with this in mind, incorporating multiple sightlines that would capture significant celestial events at different points in this long cycle. A single doorway might be framed to catch the rising sun on the solstice, while a separate window targets the same solstice sunrise 1,000 years later as the sky's coordinates slowly shifted. This was astronomy on a geological timescale, a level of foresight that required deep generational record-keeping. Beyond the moving sky, they also battled the moving Earth. The sheer weight of a massive pyramid could cause the bedrock beneath it to compact over decades. Before laying the first block, engineers would have studied the ground. perhaps even conducting load-bearing tests to ensure the foundation would not subside unevenly and ruin their perfect angles. In seismically active regions like Peru, builders developed techniques specifically to counteract earthquakes. The polygonal walls of the Incas, with their complex interlocking joints, were designed to sway and settle during a tremor, then lock back into place, preserving their structural and astronomical integrity. They were not just building for their own time, but for a future they would never see. They understood that a monument's true power lay in its enduring relevance, its ability to continue its celestial conversation with generations yet unborn. This required a new kind of genius, one that could peer into the deep time of both the heavens and the earth and build a bridge between them in stone. Precision on this scale was a social achievement as much as a technical one. The flawless alignment of a pyramid's corner did not begin with a single mason's chisel, but with a vast, invisible network of logistics and human coordination. Feeding, housing, and managing a workforce of thousands for decades required an administrative machine of breathtaking complexity. Scribes tracked every delivery of grain, fish, and pottery, ensuring that the people carving eternity into stone did not go hungry. This was not a chaotic mob of laborers, but a structured society with a clear division of roles. Specialized teams handled every discrete task. Quarry workers, masters of stone, knew how to pick the perfect block from the living rock. Haulers, experts in leverage and friction, moved those multi-ton weights across the desert. And a small, elite group of alignment experts, the guardians of the celestial blueprint, were responsible for the final, critical placement. The Egyptians even organized their labor into work gangs with names like the Friends of Khufu or the Vigorous Gang. These were not just identifiers, they were clever motivational tools, fostering a powerful sense of team pride and friendly competition. A gang would strive to lay its section of stone more perfectly and more quickly than the rival team working on the opposite face, all in the name of their king. This intricate social organization was the silent engine of precision. A master architect could design a perfect angle, but it was the coordinated effort of thousands, each performing their specialized role with care, that translated that single angle into 13 acres of flawless geometry. The true monument was not just the pyramid itself, but the proof that human beings could organize themselves with such efficiency and unity of purpose, binding the muscle of the many to the vision of the few for a goal that would outlast them all. Our journey ends not with a final answer, but with a deeper appreciation for the human spirit. We have traced the path from a simple plumb bob's unwavering truth to the grand alignment of a pyramid with the pole star, uncovering a universal story of ingenuity. These builders possessed no magic, only a profound patience and a deep, reverent connection to the cosmos they so carefully mapped in stone. Their legacy is a powerful reminder that true precision stems not from the complexity of our tools, but from the clarity of our observation and the dedication of our hands. These silent, towering monuments are a permanent testimony to what we can achieve when a shared vision is pursued with unwavering discipline across generations. The stones they placed still point to the heavens, and when you look up at the night sky, you are seeing the very same stars that guided their hands. That shared canopy of stars is our most enduring connection to these master crafters of the ancient world. We would love to hear which technique resonated most with you. Was it the humble water level that flattened a continent, or the celestial sightlines that turned stone into a calendar? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to continue exploring the historical mysteries that link our modern world to ancient